Salutations, boys and girls. Today we're going to look at a book about one of the most famous book characters ever. It's about Clifford. Have you heard of Clifford? He's a big red dog. But this is the story of him when he was little, when he was a puppy and very small. It's called Clifford the Small Red Puppy. And there he is. Do you see him there? He's smaller than his food bowl. The man who created these Clifford stories is named Norman Bridwell. There are a lot of different Clifford stories, but let's read this one about how Clifford began his life. The person talking in this story is the narrator, and her name is Emily Elizabeth. She says, "Hi, I'm Emily Elizabeth, and this is Clifford, my big red dog." Do you see how much bigger than Emily Elizabeth he is? So she's introduced herself and she's introduced Clifford. Now she's going to tell us a story about him. She said, "I got a dog from a fancy pet store," her friend said. "Where did you get yours from?" So Emily Elizabeth is going to tell her friend where she got Clifford. She said, "When I was little, I lived in the city. I did not have a dog." So there's Emily Elizabeth. She is little, isn't she? She's probably about 3 or 4 years old there. It says one day the man down the hall called us and said that his dog had puppies and he wanted to give me one, she said. She picked out the puppy that was the smallest of them all. And guess who it was? That's right, it was Clifford. Do you see him right there? He's so tiny. Aww. She says she named him Clifford, and he was so tiny she had to feed him using baby bottles. Look at that, little doll bottles. Aw, he was young. She said they got the smallest collar that they could find. That's what goes around the doggy's neck. Little bitty Clifford. But it says the collar was too big. Look, he slipped right through it. Then he began to eat food, but they had to watch him all the time. Can you figure out why they had to watch him all the time? That's right. He's falling in his food. He's so tiny. He was so tiny that he was getting lost all the time. Look, her dad's putting on his boots, and there's a little, "Arf! Who's in the boot? What tiny little guy is hiding in the boot?" That's right, it was Clifford. Daddy said Clifford was just too small. He didn't think he would live through the winter. Oh, says she was very sad, and she told Clifford that she loved him. And the next morning, he looked bigger to her. Does he look like he's grown a little bit, guys? I think so. I think he got bigger. He seemed to have an easier time eating his food, and his collar wasn't so loose. In fact, by the time Daddy got home, the collar had broken. Look at that. Clifford is growing very, very quickly. Wow. At bedtime, Clifford's basket was too small now, so he got to sleep on Emily Elizabeth's pillow. Look, so sweet. So Clifford started off his life very, very small, but he's sure growing, isn't he? Uh-oh. Look, he kicked Emily Elizabeth right out of the bed. Mommy thought Clifford looked different. Daddy said, "I think he's growing." And he is growing. Can you see that? He's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. She took him for a walk, and there was a big dog coming, and he looks kind of mean. She hoped he wouldn't hurt Clifford, but she didn't need to worry. Why is that, guys? Well, because Clifford is a big, big, big dog now. He's even bigger than that little mean dog. Wow. I wonder why he's growing so quickly. Daddy couldn't believe it. We actually had to put Clifford outside, she said, because he was so big. And in the morning, the lady upstairs in the apartment above them had to call about them because she saw Clifford out the window. Look, he's so big he can actually see upstairs in the window. Wow, he's gone from a small, tiny puppy to a giant dog. In fact, all the neighbors started to notice Clifford, and they even called the police. They said Clifford would have to go, but how could he go? How could he leave? He can't even fit through the door, guys. Look at that. I see the police officers, but I can't even see the top of Clifford. He doesn't even fit on the page. There was only one way to get him out of the garden, it says, and they had a big crane lift him up. They sent him to live with Emily Elizabeth's uncle out in the country. Can you see him in that moving van? I see his nose peeking out and his tail peeking out. He's going to live out in the country where there's a lot more space. But poor Emily, she loved Clifford and she missed him. She was very sad, and so was Clifford. Aw, he misses his friend Emily Elizabeth. One day, she says, they got a surprise. Her uncle wanted her daddy to come work with him out in the country. So they moved to a house. And guess what? Clifford was waiting for her. You can stop growing now, she said. You are just right, Clifford. Aww. So, she said to her friend, that's how I got my dog. Tell me how you got your dog, she said. And her friend said, forget it. Clifford's story was so exciting, she decided that was enough. And look, there he is, big old Clifford. So that's the story of how Clifford began his life as a teeny tiny puppy, and then he grew to the great big red puppy, red dog, big dog. Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed this story. See you next time.